Thank you to the panelists. Thank you from the FIX community. Thank you to all the FIX community who've joined this session today. I just wanted to say a couple quick words about today. It's an understatement to say that the last few months have been challenging. So I'm really looking forward to discussing today what the impact of COVID-19 and the work from home orders and everyone's staggered approach to come back into the office has been so far on our repo community, particularly selfishly, on how it might have impacted our attitude towards post-trade automation. Will we see the much needed push to increase STP so we're more BCP and risk averse ready in the future? Should be a very interesting session and discussion with our repo community members. But first, I've been asked to say just a couple quick words about our market access post-trade business so that you guys understand our size, our scope, what I cover. So in brief, we're the leading global provider of trade matching and regulatory reporting solutions. We're also a source of comprehensive fixed income pricing and liquidity data. Today, we process over 1 billion cross-asset class transactions for a global community of over 600 clients. Pertinent to this audience is our Repo Match solution that provides electronic trade confirmations for all trades and their midlife events across 26 key economic fields, as well as fund and settlement instructions. Last quarter, we saw 62 billion in average daily volume, up almost 200% year over year, and over 59,000 matched repo trades. We use Fix5 to connect to our clients and dealers in real time. It's our preferred integration method in addition to CSV. We're active participants in the Fix post-trade and repo working groups. Here, our most recent focus has been on the post-trade bilateral repo effort, designed to ensure coverage of lifecycle events across both at the block and allocation level. We'll touch on that a little bit later. More information on our repo matching product will be distributed after this webinar. But now I'm really looking forward to our discussion. Thank you for your time and attention. And back to you, Deb.
Thanks, Colleen. Why don't we go back to the speakers and have each of the speakers please introduce themselves.
I can start. My name is Colleen Stapleton, and I am the U.S. lead of business development for Market Access's post-trade team, specifically, as I mentioned a second ago, on our repo matching product. I work with new and existing clients to increase their repo confirmation automation, as well as work to develop new ways to address clients' new needs and wants across the repo lifecycle. Prior to Market Access, I spent 12 years at JP Morgan, most recently in a strategic initiatives role focused on improving the client experience through streamlined automated workflows focused on T0 exception management. I look forward to working with the panelists today and discussing more about repo.
Yeah, my name is Richard Komoto. I'm currently doing a lot of work for the ICMA on all matters repo, and at the moment that's mainly SFTR. But I've been working for, I think, for about 20 years now on various issues. I also do a variety of market development work for bodies like the IMF, World Bank, Asian Development Bank. So yeah, that's why I'm here.
Hi, my name is Daniel Phillips. I've worked for about the last 13 years at JP Morgan in various operation capacities on the broker-dealer side. My current remit is global repo trade support. So I'm very interested in working with all the panelists and probably most of the participants on the phone in kind of solving these nagging problems with post-trade automation, affirmation, variety of problems.
Nick Menino, JP Morgan Security Services. I work in product development. My team is focused on connecting with our clients, asset managers and asset owners, in particular their order management systems, the fintech platforms that they leverage, as well as industry utilities. And our goal is to achieve a more efficient two-way exchange of data, as well as to layer on more automated operational workflows to drive efficiency. So the discussion of the post-trade lifecycle for repo is definitely applicable to what we're working on, and I look forward to this discussion today. Thank you very much.
Lou Rosado from BlackRock, and my focus at BlackRock is within our investment operations and specifically our industry engagement and strategy. We're excited about being part of this discussion today. As we look at the post-trade and asset sourcing workflows, repo stands out as an area where there's a great opportunity to apply a greater degree of straight-through processing. The good news is there is a suite of messages today via Fix to allow for post-trade processing for repo. The adoption rate, though, is very low, so we're hoping this conversation today will stir interest in adopting the use of those message formats that pre-exist. But we also recognize that the life cycle of a repo is more complex than that initial trade. And then the life cycle activities really can benefit from the enhancement or the introduction of new messaging to allow for a full life cycle view of activity from order placement, execution, allocation confirmation through to settlement, and then collateral management and all the other life cycle events that continue through an open repo. Not just from a bilateral repo point of view, but even further out for tri-party repo. Thank you, Deb.
Thanks, Lou. I know that one of the things that the panelists talked about was a polling question, and I'd like to put up that polling question now so that everybody can see it and respond. If you pick up your devices and respond to this, the question is, does your firm use fixed messaging for repos?
As we're doing that, Deb, is it worthwhile then to just kick off, maybe just go right down in the same order that we started and, talk about what do we see as the current state or some of the pre-existing challenges in the repo lifecycle? What is the area of focus for us all in terms of where we see repo today and how it can evolve? Colleen, if you can start, and then we'll go right through that order. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. I think the main challenge comes with how manual the process is, at least from a post-trade perspective, seem to still be across a lot of the community. And because of that, there might be compromises in how much actual confirmation of details, allocations, settlement information is done prior to monitoring for settlement. I think those compromises lead to increased exceptions, amendments, rework, and then potentially the write-offs and claims off the back of that. Obviously, there are solutions that can help, market access repo being one, but again, it comes with more and more of the community investing and participating in those in that network and growing those networks. We all become better. The exceptions can highlight trends, identified processes, and potential behavior shifts that can help the front end, that can help cut down on some of those exceptions. So I think it comes back to the manual affirmation of trades, the lack of the use of vendors in this space potentially, especially when you compare it to the security sector, the cash securities. So I think where we can work to, as a community, build out the fixed messaging to support the full life cycle, but then also look and support the post-trade networks that are out there to help with automation and confirmation across many different processes existing in the repo market.
So from my perspective, I represent JP Morgan custodian and fund accountant. And one of the most significant drivers of inefficiency for us is dealing with the post-trade repo lifecycle. In particular, there are not really industry standards right now for instruction of some of the more complex transaction-related movements for repo. So things like pair-offs, if you're looking to pair off and settle a cash difference, things like instructing a closed leg to an open repo, those types of instructions today are very manual. And so what we see is we see our asset manager and asset owner clients having to default to manual means of instruction to be able to tell us to perform those actions, things like faxes or other manual means of instruction communication. And so there's a real thirst in the post-trade lifecycle for repo to develop standards for more of the complex transaction-related movements. Not your simple settle an open leg, settle a closed leg, but things that are more, require more ability to straight through process those instructions than what's available today. And so hoping as part of this discussion, this particular pain point resonates with some of the folks on this call, because if we can come together as an industry and start to drive some of the automation that is missing today from the post-trade workflow for repo, I think all of us can incur a benefit as a result. And that's what I'm hoping to get from this discussion.
This is Dan. I guess my view is sort of a combination of both of those two comments so far. So I totally agree with Colleen that we're currently in a state where the majority of the processing and a majority of the execution, for that matter, is still manual in nature. And one of the byproducts of that is all of the different market participants have their own processes and their own expectations. So as a dealer, interacting with dozens or hundreds of different clients and having to account for each individual preference severely limits our ability to scale the business. So to Nick's point, if we had industry standards or industry best practices that everybody could agree to sort of operate in the same manner, that would be incredibly beneficial. And I realized that until there is some sort of, technology or vendor solution, it's going to be very difficult to kind of get everybody on the same page. So in my eyes, the best path forward is to continue to build out the technology solutions and to continue to push the adoption for that so that we have less variability in the processing of similar events across the client base.
I would just echo, starting with Colleen's comments on the network effect. I think the opportunity to improve the activity, the straight-through processing that occurs today, from order placement, execution, all the way through then the life cycle, the things that the folks, the panelists have already spoken to already, are not very linked today, or counterintuitively, repo financing activity, a very systemically important amount of activity, support trading and other investment products through the life cycle, is really manually driven today. The evolution of trading is advancing now to be electronic in line with other fixed income products or other listed products and or fixed income products that trade electronically today. I think that's a good news. I think where then the allocation confirmation workflow through to settlement, there's a greater opportunity to close the gap on the manual processing and begin to advance some standard way to communicate. The good news on that is obviously FIX supports that today. The adoption rate is low, and how do we then connect it together? And I think in a way that makes it interoperable to our different networks. A counterparty and client relationship is one component, but things like market access or tracks and or other applications that can bring a network effect together to improve the connectivity of the workflow first, and then maybe find a neutral way to do that over time like FIX. But if not, at least make it interoperable to a more digitized process. Where today, for high notional volumes and very risky trading activity in financing or repo, there's still a lot of manual processing, which inherently is obviously where then exceptions derive, and settlement is not achieved on 100% of the time when instructed. So I think at the end of the day, when we look at repo, a low degree of automation, a high degree of an opportunity to then apply automation to solve that problem with some pre-existing standards today like FIX, and then some network effect in terms of bringing clients and brokers and third parties together to achieve that. And I think that's what hopefully we'll talk about more today.
Just to put things into perspective from, say, a European point of view, some 70% of turnover is electronic, some 60% is CCP cleared. So there's no issue there, but this tends to be, the commoditized interdealer trades in govie bonds, nothing very complex about them. What we really have to focus on is that what looks like a relatively small residual, but is in fact where all the complexity lies: customer deals, large deals, structured deals, long-term deals, and so on. The problem, I think, is that we talk about, I should add as well, there are in fact standards. ICMA publishes a very extensive set of best practices. But the real problem is that underlying procedures in banks are manual. It's not so much the communication yet, it's the fact that just to do a pair off is an extremely cumbersome task for most institutions. So easing the communication of that by standardization is one element, but there is a lot more to be done. And a comment that I might come back to in the rest of this discussion is, with SFTR, what we've really discovered is that a lot of people don't understand the product, and there's quite a degree of confusion, which means that everybody designs a slightly different solution. Everybody, you can have different firms reporting the same transaction in very different ways. And that's a fundamental problem that is always going to complicate any attempts to standardize. What is a repo differs between firms. We have repos being reported as securities loans being reported as repo, life cycle events being translated from securities lending into repo where they don't really work. So there are some deep issues here. So we can go so far, but they ultimately those have to be addressed.
And Richard, I think that's a great point where we can highlight the need for an increased participation in our FIX working groups, and especially our repo working group, because it does tend to be light in participation, where we know that there are so many subject matter experts that should be joining and contributing, because the product that we yield, the standards that we set, are only as strong as the front, the middle, and the back, and the reg that participate in those conversations and can bring their own firm's interpretation of what the fields mean or how they should be defined. So I think that's a fantastic point, and just a reminder to the group to please reach out to the FIX community and participate. Bring your knowledge and your expertise and your attention and your opportunities to the table so they can be discussed and our standards can grow.
See, it's such a key point that you're both making, really, in terms of there's translation problems continually in the marketplace and what we define, the different things that flow through a full life cycle, from the origination of managing risk to an investment idea to then implementing it and then managing it through the life cycle. And repo obviously being more complex in terms of all the life cycle events through open repo or closed, the collateral management, repricings, et cetera. Those things all have different descriptions in our own internal workflows or then technology to support some of that. What we get out of the benefit in these worker groups within FIX is FIX is essentially a common language. So even if we're not applying the protocol 100% through the life cycle between our workflows to our external partners, there's a benefit, I think Colleen and Richie just highlighted this, to bring us together then to define best practice and or the terms, to then find the common opportunities to then drive more standardized processing. Like, at the end of the day, we all benefit from creating a standard. How we apply it might be differently or make it interoperable to our workflow, but the very basics of just some of that translation being lost sometimes is a key blocker that we could solve for.
So I think the next topic we wanted to sort of step into was just what our individual views of the current sort of COVID realities have put onto the repo current state and the challenges that we experienced in the repo market. Did it help us highlight any of the current inefficiencies, et cetera? So I don't know if we can just go around the room, again, similar to the first question, and just talk about our own experiences with our own firms on how we sort of worked through COVID, and did this shine a light on sort of the historic issues with repo, or did it uncover any new ones, et cetera?
I think really at the end of the day, the enormous response that the industry came together to stabilize through the beginning of COVID in April-March timeline, and then begin to then deal with, on top of the move to a new way of working remotely. Almost 100% of what we're doing was at that early point in time move to a remote way of operating our business. We then had the additional volatility and volume come on top of that. And it did highlight what we known were the pressure points previously, but maybe didn't see in such an extreme way. The cracks were there, and light really came through the cracks even more prominently through very basic things. And it really leads to the areas where, like repo or financing activity and sec lending, certain aspects of that workflow is still too manual today, or it's not connected from a full lifecycle point of view, and the interoperability is really low as a result of the manual processing. And so we did see some strain there, and I think there was an overall backlog of managing through exceptions or settlements when we had to deal with that volume and volatility, and the shift from working in a normal environment to a remote way of working. Now, I'd say the industry did respond very positively and stabilize very quickly, and you were back to where those cracks were, I think, historically, that now have an opportunity for us to refocus on. I think we were continually focused on those areas as an industry, but probably the prioritization was lower than we would have wanted, knowing that we could be going into a crisis like we did. Repo market is financing activity is a systemically important set of activities for us to transact. And so it's counterintuitive that we'd be lower on the end of spectrum of STP or automation to support some of the post-trade and asset servicing, whereas you would expect this would be a higher degree of automation at this stage. So I'd say we don't want to waste a good crisis, and the focus now is shifting on how do we solve this problem. And again, very basic ways to do that, and really actionable things that are available to us today to advance that connectivity through the full life cycle in a better, more standardized way, and achieve a higher degree of automation.
Yeah, Lou, this is Dan. I sort of agree with all of those points that you went through, mostly about surges in volume, a loss of efficiency as people adjusted to working remotely. And the other thing that I would sort of add in is from a resiliency perspective, we realize that when you have hundreds of bespoke processes, it's very difficult for your entire staff or the entire team to know all of them. So then we realized that we had certain key person dependencies and we had some processes that definitely fell down as we kind of worked through the restraints of having everybody work from home and having longer lead time to getting people trained and just more friction to kind of sharing knowledge amongst the team. So I think that's just another argument for any sort of standardization of processes and increased automation and increased transparency to kind of the transactions as they go through either the vanilla life cycle of execution, affirmation, settlement, or the various life cycle events, re-rates, reprices, substitutions, all of that stuff that can get a little bit more complicated.
And I'll just jump in here. I mean, touching on, Lou, what you said a second ago, I mean, it still blows my mind that the repo market, which is mostly done, for cash settle or overnight, is the one that is actually still existing and so highly manual with so many different processes. And, the most common communication is the Excel spreadsheet over an email. So I think it's a ripe market for exactly what we're talking about. But I just wanted to draw at that point again. From my perspective, I heard over and over and over again in conversations across the community, sort of as this was kicking off and sort of midway through, just the wish that people had been more prepared, more automated, more agile, that they had seen this coming, So I think from my perspective, my hope is that we'll look back and call this, the inflection point where these type of automation projects from a middle and back perspective start receiving the funding and the prioritization that they deserve right along the front office projects and the regulatory reporting projects that usually, win the foot race. Nick, do you have any comments?
Yeah, I think as soon as the volatility hit in the market late February, early March, we saw a significant uptick in transaction volume. And I think that additionally, we saw more last minute decisions about settlement being made close to market cutoff. And so that put a significant challenge on the plates of our operations teams to be able to accommodate our clients, a lot of them who were instructing from their living rooms to perform actions on transactions that were worth, in some cases, hundreds of millions of dollars. So for us, we were able to manage that because of the capability of our operating model. But I think it really, as Lou said, magnified an existing issue that we have with this particular asset class, which is why is it so easy to manage equities and vanilla fixed income instruments, but when it comes to repos and the associated transaction movements off the back of them, we struggle? Why is there no industry standard via FIX, SWIFT, or what have you to be able to seamlessly get these instructions from a client's order management system to the custodian and fund accountant? So I think for us, it really just accelerated our urgency in wanting to adopt a standard that asset managers and asset owners could take on seamlessly, that did not require significant technical uplift or reconfiguration of their applications to be able to support. And I think, it's one of the reasons why we're gathered here is to be able to try to talk about how we can move towards that direction and get some standardization in the post-trade space. I think historically, there's always been focus on execution, confirmation, allocation, collateral agreements, et cetera. But post-trade and settlements has been somewhat neglected historically. And I think that this COVID crisis helped illuminate that particular point and created some urgency in trying to provide some answers.
I would just add to your point, Dan, and it's one of the strongest points I think made so far. Like the pre-existing investment in digitizing trading really is there and invested in already to leverage further. Most of what we're talking about is, if there's electronic execution today, is via fixed protocol in terms of the message format and the connectivity through then to the next piece, which is the trade processing and allocation through to settlement. That activity today, a lot of it can be captured in a fixed message when you get to post-trade, but clearly needs to expand when you get into the lifecycle events for repo. And there's an incentive even further through the workflow now with things like SFTR or CSTR in terms of then having the regulatory reporting requirements to kind of fit into that full lifecycle view. but I think it's key. The lack of adoption in post-trade or asset sourcing really is an underinvestment and or an under leveraging of the pre-existing investment on the digitized trading workflow, which again derives off a standard message via FIX. That's almost at 100% of the time. The electronic trading today is supported via a FIX message, and an allocation message, a collateral message, then a repricing message, all those additional things, a netting or settlement message could be leveraging the pre-existing formats that are further up in the workflow, really that don't need to be enhanced further in many instances, or if they do, it's very minor addition of new tags or concepts to come into the messaging format to then process. I think this is, an example of if we bring the community together and begin to promote those pre-existing things, especially starting with the upfront part of the workflow, and then move it to a full lifecycle discussion for post-trade to asset sourcing, there's low-hanging fruit.
I completely agree, Lou, and maybe this is a good time to transition to a question with regards to what can, and I think we've already touched on it actually. I think Nick, you talked about the repo working group taking a look at settlements, and Lou has mentioned it as well. But do we want to transition over to, what are the broader strategic concepts and how do we overcome any of the standards perspective with regards to the repo working group itself? And maybe, where we are in the repo working group discussions and what's teed up for the next agenda item. Deb, Lisa, are you guys there to potentially give a little update there if we don't have Steve?
So I'm sorry, Colleen, you were asking?
Yeah, no, I mean, I just one of the next things, in conscious of time is maybe to just spend a little bit of time before we open it up for questions on talking about our repo, the fixed repo working group, and what we've accomplished to date and maybe what we have teed up. And then, I think we've touched on some of the other opportunities existing. If anyone has anything else that they want to throw in there around extending it to the servicing side, the custodian side, the prime side, we've spoken on a couple really great next steps and additional opportunities.
So in terms of what the working group has accomplished so far, based on, a initial roadmap that Steve, Kelly, and Tom Garley had put together at the beginning of the working group. At that time, we focused on pre-trade, trade, and post-trade for bilateral repo and also tri-party repo. What we notice about tri-party is the workflow for a lot of that side is very similar or effectively the same as bilateral. It's just, identifying additional parties involved in a tri-party. So we do have the recommended practices for pre-trade, trade, and post-trade. Those drafts, I believe, should be published already or will be published soon because there's a couple of things we need to fix up, I think, based on the gap analysis that was completed recently as well, because there were a couple of gaps based on pulling together the recommended practices. Unfortunately, Steve can't be on the call, but he was going to show the roadmap that was used as the kickoff. And I think based on that, we were looking for feedback as to what should be the next topic the working group should be looking at.
Lisa, I have the 2 slides that he gave me.
The slide that you're talking about really simply just walks through what are the component parts, what is the full life cycle of repo, starting with the data management through order placement execution, trade processing, life cycle events, reporting, and any exceptions management. So I think clearly the work that has been done at this point in time has documented a lot of the pre-existing workflow and marries into that where there are messages today that are linked through the life cycle and where the opportunities are to create new messaging or further links further down into the life cycle. Is that
right? We did, document, some of the rollout and closeout and the repricing, just looking at this slide, because we also had to address a little bit of that because of SFTR. We did address, in terms of post-trade, the whole allocation piece and a couple of other life cycle events. I think collateral was in there, but definitely closeouts and repricing is in there.
And maybe now is a great time to shift over for any feedback from the panel, just to continue the conversations around what else can be solutioned, what are the other additional opportunities. Nick, you had some great ideas earlier. I think one of the ones that I've heard repeatedly from a market access perspective is assistance in just getting the trades from the asset manager to the custodian. I think every custodian supports different message types, and there are actually still a lot of custodians that don't take on a Swift message for a repo. So I think potentially some of that can be looked at as well, in addition to, building out those communication channels to help with the post-trade from customer and dealer matching, but also extending from asset manager to custodian. I think that's a huge part of what we can look to and sort of pivot to make sure that we've got a lot of that mapped out and ready for use to help with post-trade automation.
Colleen, we have one more polling question. If you don't mind, perhaps we can put it up. It was regarding the FIX repo working group and asking the audience, which of the following components of the repo market is your biggest challenge? And so the choices are data, execution, trade processing, lifecycle events, regulatory reporting, and exception management.
While this is happening, can I just express a slight concern that I think it's going to be more difficult to achieve this penetration into further down the chain of functions in Europe than it will be in the US. So, for example, tri-party, I think, will be a difficult nut to crack because of the way that it's structured and the existing communication arrangements that we have in Europe. Certainly, I would have thought where asset managers are concerned, custodians are concerned, that's a prime area. But I think that, it will be quite challenging to move FIX in Europe into all these areas. And I think things like, I highlighted tri-party, but I think post-trade generally is going to be a challenge.
That's a fair statement. But I would also then say, how do we overcome it? And one of the ways I think there is a recognition on this call today that there is advancement in the way we transact and execute repo trades today. We're moving to more rapidly the electronic execution than originates all the activity that happens post-trade. And there's an ability for us, or an opportunity for us, to further adopt some of the simple messaging further from the front part of that life cycle to then the next part, which is the trade processing, allocation, and to settlement. I think the good news is, obviously, this working group has looked at the full life cycle and have narrowed in the opportunities, and then actually are highlighting some pre-existing messages or simple enhancements to allow for the messaging or the workflow to use the messaging to connect further. Very disconnected today. We know it. That's then driven further as a problem to then the manual processing to try to close that disparate workflow gap. We need to bring some level of attention up and understanding that the electronic workflows that exist for trading can be carried through. Now, to your point on Europe, I think it's a fair point. And Colleen's point, then moving through to a custody orientation, whether that's from a client or between a counterparty of a transaction and a client's custodian to settle the transaction. You have disparate messages today to support some of the same activity. From a broker-client orientation that's largely FIX to a client-custodian that's largely Swift. The good news on that is that the two organizations are starting to look at how they can conform messaging formats to be more compatible. And ISO is driving that. And I think there's an appetite and real motion in to bring some of the messages to look more alike and be used interchangeably depending on your preference. Mm-hmm. So the good news is the standardization is going to drive a focus on closing some of these gaps where messaging doesn't exist or standardization is low. And then the two organizations, Swift and FIX, come together more prominently together to look at how they make those messages interoperate. And then again, I think then you have the best of scenarios where a broker, a client, and a custodian all has some form of choice on how to interoperate through the life cycle. Today, obviously, repo in this conversation is highlighting the fact that it's very disparate. It's not high SDP. It lacks the standardization. And so it leads to an opportunity, I think, Richard, over time, we should flatten that out to be a global view and not be nuanced by one region or the other. Now, I'd also say, to your point is fair too, in terms of the regulatory focus on these things, whether it's SFTR or CSDR, which links into this conversation. We need to bring the level of STP up to actually support these regulatory requirements. And so it's not going to happen via spreadsheets in order to get to settlement or finality on a transaction. So, again, I appreciate there's a global problem here, and it's a full ecosystem that needs to come together on something common, which is very complicated and difficult over time. My view is, how do we use some of the pre-existing messaging today and conform it further to be more compatible and or make it interoperate? That's it. That's more the opportunity.
I mean, I think that's a great point, right? I mean, because at least with SFTR, they have done so much of the standardization in order to make that reporting and that matching work, that must be able to feed into the tags that are decided from a fixed community perspective. It almost drives it a little bit, So, I definitely think that some of those challenges can be overcome. Obviously, the biggest ones first, and there might be some stragglers there at the bottom, but I think that goes back to making sure that we do have global repo community participation in these working groups to make sure that the European considerations are married with the US considerations, so this becomes a stronger network and we get it right.
Your point is so strong because the fixed trading community has actually come to task over time to meet these regulatory regimes or requirements. Starting with EMIR to MiFID to now SFTR and things like CSDR, the community is bringing better understanding to the pre-existing message formats to allow for, the connection to then regulatory reporting, or to improve, and it's one of the areas I think I just wanted to highlight where I think there's an opportunity. The messaging for repo today that already pre-exists for initial trades, the very basic stuff, still lacks and this does across other asset classes. We still do not have a fixed message for a settlement status through the life cycle. There have been design of and implementation of a settlement status via a fixed format. It just hasn't been brought to the formal technical committee to then publish out to the marketplace for comment and then move it through to a approved message. That is a key, simple to do for this group to take away to create that settlement status, from pre-matching through to settlement to then failure of a trade. And the good news is there's bones of that today already pre-existing in terms of Swift messaging to support some of that. It may not carry over, though, to all the different business channels like the financing activity. But we could benefit from a simple settlement message, which I think is in motion and should be something that comes to a more formal conclusion inside the first quarter of 2021. And we'll be ahead of that now that the regime for at least CSDR has been pushed out to 2022.
Yeah, now we'll be really ahead of the curve.
That's a simple, actionable win, Colleen. That's the point I want to make.
Yeah.
It's not pie in the sky to take the allocation messages that pre-exist across asset class, including repo, and now build across all products a settlement status for all the activity that trades electronically today.
100%. I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, I think it's something that needs to be done, and we've got so much of the skeleton already there. Sorry, Deb, were you saying something?
Yeah, I was just checking to see if Kathleen Callahan's unmuted, and I know she wanted to say a few words as well.
Sure. Great. Thanks, Deb. And thanks to all of our panelists for coming together and bringing this session to us today. And I just wanted to point out, as Colleen and Richard mentioned during the course of the conversation, without participation from our member firms, we are not able to produce solutions that are comprehensive and beneficial. So we encourage all of you to engage and collaborate, tell your colleagues, join the fixed trading community working groups, and help us create standards and solutions that work for everyone. So you can contact the program office at fixedtrading.org. And so just to talk about some of the groups that are related to what we have spoken about today. Earlier in the conversation, Deb put up the poll where 55% of participants used fixed messages for repo. We'd like to see that get even higher, right? So in the repo working group, as Lisa mentioned, the bilateral repos, the group's already worked on their extension packs and recommended practices. available for the bilateral work. And as was mentioned, they're now looking at tri-party repos, and obviously there's even more that this group can focus on going forward. Global Post-Trade Working Group is also working on netting and settlement instructions. They did the payment messaging processing last year, and so now they're going to move into netting and settlement, which, as a lot of people spoke about here, are important pieces. And then we also have the Lifecycle and Ecosystem Working Group, which are looking to identify segments within the trade life cycle to create connections front to back. And so we encourage everybody to please participate and join working groups, contact the program offices if you're interested, want more information. You can also visit the initiatives page. We have a couple of additional webinars in the queue. Fix Latest is coming up tomorrow. Then we have the Master SPSA, September 22nd, the ETF webinar on October 7th, and an outsourced trading webinar will be scheduled in October. Make sure you check the events page on the website for any updates. In terms of events, we have the virtual EMEA Trading Conference coming up on the 18th of September, the Hong Kong Asia Pac Summit on October 20th in Hong Kong, and then also we have a virtual summit in Asia Pac, which will be happening in November, date to be decided there as well. And again, I just wanted to say thank you once again to everybody who joined, to our speakers, and to Market Access, of course, for sponsoring this webinar. So this will wrap up our session for today. Thanks, everyone, and stay safe.